Okay, so I feel like it's important to talk about how funds are allocated, as I'm learning that this process isn't as clear as I have understood it to be. Um, I've been at the district for about 2 years, and this was the process that was in place when I arrived. I've made some minor adjustments in the amounts that I provide to schools on a per pupil basis, but have continued the process by and large of resource allocation since my start at the district. But one of my favorite things about our new superintendent is her commitment and her desire for continuous improvement. And so she encourages this by evaluating systems and receiving feedback on an ongoing basis. Um, and resource allocation is one of the areas that I found is not as collaborative as I had imagined it. And so this is an area where we'll continue to evolve. And so with that, the district has a two-part process for resource allocation. So funds, this is the big pot of money. And then the funds are allocated to schools on a per pupil basis at a fixed amount. And it's that amount is different or differentiated per grade level. As I mentioned before, I have made some slight increases to the amounts since my joining the district, but that was only in an attempt to not have principals lose any buying power as we got hit with inflation and that sort of thing. So making sure that that dollar that they spend the year previous will still go just as far the next year with given this inflation. So as I mentioned, funds are allocated on a per pupil basis. And this represents some of the things that schools pay for or that they're responsible for paying for from their budget. So copy paper and supplies, supplemental instruction materials, PBIS rewards, field trips. Those are things that are operating costs that come from the school building funds. And I think there's a lot, like I said, I think there's a lot of work to be done in this area. And this to me represents the way we fund schools kind of represents like what I think of when I think about the old state funding formula, because that formula used to allocate $6,050 per student. There's no real rhyme or reason why it was $6,050. So this is an area that I'm definitely looking into because I'd like to differentiate that based on need. We have buildings with different needs and just wanting to acknowledge that as we fund and think about allocating our resources the same way that the state does. So also, district leaders submit budgets. They do this once a year. We review it again in the spring. So they do this initially in the fall. And the district budgets for things that schools don't have to budget for. So textbooks, curricular materials, Chromebooks, furniture, district systems, so like Power School, those sorts of things that everyone uses, utilities, transportation, building repairs and maintenance, and staffing. Sorry. And so those are some things that schools don't have to use their budgets for, but then there are services that the district offers that we do charge back to schools. And those things include things like the copier leases, substitutes, and transportation for field trips.